Hey everyone, it is your boy Captain Hunter coming at you again. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I want to thank my friend, Brother Snider, Brother Keith Snider, for having me back on. It always means something when somebody asks you to come back on to their platform or to join in whatever they're doing. So if somebody invites you one time, that's great. But if they invite you back 2-3 times, man, you know that they really have a belief in your words and in your work. So I want to thank him for allowing me one more time to come back onto his platform and to talk about something that I think is really important. Once again, my name is Lawrence Hunter. For those of you who don't know me, I have a podcast called Captain Hunter's Podcast where I talk about policing and other issues. I was a 24-year veteran of the Waterbury Police Department in Waterbury, Connecticut. Retired in good standing. I wrote a book called Police Reform upon my retirement, I should say. I wrote a book called Police Reform, a retired police perspective on the evolution of law enforcement here in America. It's available on lulu.com, Amazon, and I just released the digital platform, so you can download it to your Kindle or Nook or whatever you have. It's also available in Barnes & Noble and should be wherever bookstores, wherever one purchases their book. So upon my retirement from law enforcement, I started a podcast called Captain Hunter's Podcast, and I completed a book. I'm also going to be an adjunct professor at a local college in Connecticut. So that's just a little bit about my background. So I wanted to talk about, and Brother Snider wanted me to talk about something that's kind of near and dear to my heart. When I was a police officer, I was part of what we call the critical incident team. So the critical incident team was a group of officers who were tasked with being almost like the first responders to any type of event wherein someone was dealing with any type of crisis. So therefore, I had to go through a week-long training to learn how to deal with those members of society who are in crisis. So we often know that people who are homeless or who commit suicide, obviously, are really just kind of in a really bad mental space, and so they need some type of help to get out of those spaces. So I actually have 2 degrees that are in psychology. One is my bachelor's is in psychology, and my master's is in forensic psychology. Forensic psychology is the crossing of the legal system with behavioral analysis. That's what psychology is. The study of the brain and behavior. So forensic psychologists want to understand why persons take the path in life that they have, and what we can do in a predictive sense in order to get them out of that particular space that they're in, and particularly when it comes to criminal behavior. We also had to study mental health, abnormal psychology, and things along those lines. So that's just a little bit of my background, and I wanted to talk about what goes on in mental health. And so a couple of questions I really want to talk about, and that is this idea around men. What is our issue with mental health? Why can't we seem to talk about mental health? Why can't we seem to open up? Why do we hide things within ourselves? And I think that there's 2 things. I think that number one, it's kind of a genetic type of situation, wherein men are, just naturally, if you will, defensive, naturally quiet, or want to have this super machismo type of attitude. And I think that really is enforced and reinforced through societal norms and expectations of what a real man is. Real men hunt. Real men are tough. Real men don't cry. Real men suppress their feelings. Real men must lead. Real men must do X. This is a problem that I think that men have, but particularly with law enforcement, where my background is. We talked about that all the time. And when I taught, I was actually a teacher of human behavior, and we talked about that all the time, where men, police officers, really have to learn to open up and express themselves and let their feelings and their emotions out. When we don't, there's a toxic physiological buildup that builds up within ourselves, and that is what causes heart attacks and stress and strokes and cardiovascular disease and all these diabetes and a number of different maladies and ailments that go on within our body because we're not expressing ourselves or allowing these emotions to get out. And so this tough guy attitude all the time, particularly around men, is really something that we really have to take a hard look at and really do the best that we can and overcome them. So as a man, as in law enforcement, many times people often looked at us and said, we're kind of the alpha males of society. And I would say that that's true of corrections officers. It's true of firefighters, military persons in the military. But in all these different groups have a certain level of heart attacks. They suffer from post-traumatic stress syndrome. They suffer from strokes. They suffer from just a bad lifestyle and shortened lifespans. So I really think that people ought to look at that. But once again, this is not just an alpha male type of syndrome. On my podcast, I've interviewed a number of different people, and I've had doctors on who have made the information known that doctors have one of the highest suicide rates in the country. Did anyone else know that? So this is a problem that we really have to understand. This idea that hiding things, not letting people know that we hurt, that we cry, that we bleed, and that we go through problems and situations is really something that we really have to take a look at from a man's point of view. And no matter what profession you have, don't think that you're so tough, so manly, so macho that you can't cry, that you can't go home and tell your wife, or that you can't do whatever. And a message to the ladies out there is that if your man comes to you and says he's dealing with something, this is not the time to challenge his manhood. It's not the time to challenge his strength. I know that the women oftentimes will want this alpha male. They want a tough guy. But he's got to be able to be vulnerable around you. He's got to be able to do that. So give him that space and don't challenge his manhood when and if he does that. How do we change the stigma around seeking mental health and not allowing people to know that getting mental health is okay? I think the best method that we can do in order to change the stigma is to talk about it and to listen to shows like this. To listen to shows like my own Captain Hunter's podcast, and to really listen to the stories that are out there and everything like that. Let me just give an example of one time that it was okay. It was known to me that it was okay to not be okay. As a police officer, I can remember one of the first calls that I had gone on. There was a situation wherein it was a baby not breathing call. I was the first officer to arrive. I was almost brand new at the time, probably 6 months to a year on the job. I go into the house, and the mother literally throws the baby. I mean, the baby is in the air. I catch the baby. She's like, do something about my baby. Help my baby. I started performing CPR, and then I took the baby downstairs. And when the ambulance arrived, I, gave the baby off, and the baby did not end up making it, and I had to console the family and all that. So, fast forward to the next day. Now I was working third shift at the time, so I go home, sleep for a few hours. I go back to work. I can't remember why I went back to work, but anyway, as I'm there, one of the lieutenants, they were head of a unit. That was dealing with officers who were stressed. And this is 1996, 1997 or so, something along those lines. So as I'm dealing with, as I'm talking to the lieutenant, he says to me, "Hey, Hunter, you okay?" So I said, "Yeah," and I really was okay. I mean, obviously I remember the incident, but I really was okay. It was just a fact of life, sad fact of life that sometimes baby die from SIDS and all that. But I appreciated the fact that this lieutenant came to me and wanted to know if I was all right after the call that I had the previous night. So I think that it's really, really important to be open and to understand and to be sharing and caring. This lieutenant didn't look at me as weak. He didn't say, he didn't make fun of me. He didn't, try to do the old punch in the arm type of thing. You man up and all this. But he wanted to know if I was okay. And I think that how we break the stigma is by really showing some empathy, putting our arms around, whether it's physically or emotionally, putting our arms around someone and saying, "Hey, listen, it's okay to not be okay. You've seen some traumatic things in your life. You've gone through some traumatic situations. Maybe you've lost maybe your marriage broke down. Maybe you lost a job. Maybe you lost a child. Maybe you lost your parent. Maybe you lost whatever. Or maybe you're just dealing with some mental health issues from a biochemical standpoint. Whatever it is, it's okay not to be okay, but it's not okay to stay there. But there's help that we can get. So we've got to be able to break these stigmas. I think that my mental health is good. Listen, since one thing that many people do, particularly law enforcement, but many people struggle with, they create this identity around their job, right? Their job becomes them and they become their identity. And that's really, really happens to police officers. So when police officers, uh, when they retire, um, many of them actually commit suicide because they can't deal. This happens to football players as well. I can remember one of the great football linebackers of all time, Junior Seau. Not long after his retirement, he commits suicide. People take on this identity of who and what they are, and it really, really is a difficult thing to do. And so I struggle with that too. That's why I wanted to have a plan for when I retired. I wanted to start a podcast. I wanted to write a book, and there's other things that I have that are laid out for me that I want to do. So I think you got to have a plan. Um, is it easy for me to talk about these things? No. As far as I'm one of those people as a man who thinks that I need to be tough. And when I'm talking to you all, I'm talking to myself as well. And I'm saying to myself, it's okay not to be okay. It's okay to open up to my man, to my friend, to my woman, to whoever. I think it's okay to do that. I know that sometimes I hold it in and you say everything's okay, and people always ask, what's up, man? How you doing? Everything good? And we're all tough guys. And we say, yeah, okay, yeah, everything's good. No problems, everything. Meanwhile, our finances are in wreck. Meanwhile, our houses are in wreck. Meanwhile, we're on the verge of divorce. Meanwhile, our wives have moved out. Meanwhile, our kids are sick. Meanwhile, the boss is on me. I may get fired, but we got to hold up. We feel as if we got to hold up this front that everything's okay when it's really not. We got to find a good person, whether it's a counselor, a therapist, a friend, a pastor, a coworker, to really be able to confide and to seek out that help that we really so desperately need. I think that is extremely and vitally important. And finally, let me just end off this by saying, how do I maintain my health? Well, this is very, very cathartic for me. This situation, this podcast that I'm doing. Because some days, I'm not okay. Some days I worry about my future. I do suffer from the same losses, loss of sense and of identity and self, because I'm not a police officer anymore. And so there's some days that I need encouragement. So when people tell me that I have a great episode, or the podcast is doing well, or they want a book, or they want this, or they want that, I really need to hear those words of affirmation, those words of encouragement. And so I don't do things to hear them. I do things because I have a passion, because I have love. But people want to know that they're appreciated, and they want to know that what they're doing is making a difference. So how do I maintain my mental health? I keep going. I keep pushing. I keep striving. And I look for those words of affirmation. And if and when I do not get them, I try to encourage myself. And to keep going, to keep pressing, and to keep believing in myself. When other people don't believe in myself, I have to believe in my own self. Listen, this road isn't easy. We have to be able to talk to people. We have to be able to talk and work through situations. We have to identify our weaknesses, look for senses of self, and try to get that sense of self-esteem and self-love and self-preservation and self-care from other things. So whatever it is that you like to do for self-care, do that. If you like to go fishing or hunting or biking or running, do those things. And I think that those things are really, really important. Finally, let me just say a word about mental health. Is often tied to our gut health and our physiological health. So maintain your health. Eat right. Fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, and berries. I heard another person put it like this: G bombs. The G stands for greens, beans, onions, mushrooms, berries, and seeds. G bombs. You got to eat fruits, vegetables, and maintain and treat your body as a temple. Second thing you got to do is really, really work on your exercise. Get your health and your mind in shape, and your body in shape, and your mind will follow. Whenever people go for walks, after 22 minutes of walking, You build up just endorphins, and you build up these serotonins and all these different biochemicals that in the brain, and and it really, really helps your psyche. Whenever I run, I started running recently. Whenever I run, after the 35, 40 minutes, my body feels that runner's high, and that keeps my endorphins up. So get back in shape. Start working out. Start exercising. As you look better, as you look better, you'll feel better. You look in the mirror and see that gut going away. You see your arms starting to take that tone that they had when you were in your 20s, and all that, and you'll look better, and then you'll feel better. And then if you start running or biking or even walking, you'll notice that that your endorphin levels will come up. As you eat better, you'll feel better, and your whole body, all the toxins and poisons. Forget about this detox and all that kind of stuff. Eat right, and that'll be the only detox that you need. Eat those greens, those beans, those onions, those mushrooms. Eat those berries, and eat those seeds. Do those things, and fruits and vegetables and all that kind of good stuff, and whole grains, the oats, the barleys, the rice, potatoes, sweet potatoes, yams. Eat all that stuff without the oils and butters and milks and processed creams and all that kind of stuff. Eat it the way that it came from the ground. If you do these things, if you eat right, you work out, you get an exercise, stop working so much, enjoy your time off, enjoy your children, stop putting so much pressure on yourself to do X, Y, and Z. If you do these things, you'll notice that your mental health will feel better. I know some people just feel like they got to hustle and be on that grind all the time, 24 hours a day. But if you can really, really work out your mind, work out your body, and really just take the time off to relax, to sleep, especially if you start eating right and exercising your body. Some people can't sleep or whatever, but if you eat right, exercise, you'll tire out your body and you'll be able to sleep, and your sleep will be so much better. And all this will have an effect on your brain and your mental health. So I thank you guys for tuning in. I thank Brother Snider for having me back on the podcast. I think that what he's doing is extremely, extremely important. So many of us are dealing with so many things, and since this pandemic hit, African Americans' rates of suicide have been up. Police officers' suicide has been up. Police officers who are working, their suicide rates are up. Many times, as I mentioned, post retirement, their suicide rates are up. People who are losing their jobs, who are shut in, they were all experiencing a great level of discomfort. Fortunately, the lockdown is lessening, so people can go out. They can, in the summertime is here. We can get out, go to the beach, go for walks, and we can get out of the house and everything like that. So do those types of things. Go for the walks, go for the runs, go for the hikes, go for the bikes, go for the walks on the beach. Eat right, exercise, take some time off from work, sleep better, and you'll feel better. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. Much love and peace.